Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Talking Ruggers. Ahead of you this week, we have a brilliant conversation with one of the up-and-coming stars in rugby's social media game. And in fact, that might even be a lie because he's almost already there himself. He's amassed over 50,000 followers across platforms, playing local rugby and tracking his gym journey. He's an S&C coach by day, but an influencer by night. And oh boy, does he get a whole lot of chat for it. And that's what a lot of our conversation revolves around, the world of social media, but in particular, getting a lot of online hate in the process. It's a part of the job. It's not the best bit of it, but it definitely happens both on the ground at games, but also in the online comment sections. So we break down how to go through those difficult times, as well as secure yourself some good ones as well along the way, detailing out all the things that can help a social media influencer and content creator grow on platforms, really getting into a lot of the nitty-gritty details. For someone of such a young age, Josef is so full of so much insight, and he shares all of it with you here today. So make sure you head down below and drop a like on the episode. If you're new around here, then subscribe to the channel, whether that's on Instagram at Talking Ruggers, on YouTube at Talking Ruggers, or on TikTok at Talking Ruggers. All one word on all platforms. Rate us 5-star on Spotify if that's your chosen platform. The same goes for Apple Music. But otherwise, I hope you guys really enjoy this episode because it's a real interesting and entertaining conversation. At least I thought whilst having it with Josef. So without any further ado, let's get straight into the episode. All right, Josef, for people who may not already know who you are, in your own words, who is Josef Weber?
I think in the simplest way to put it, I'm just like quite a normal shy lad who accidentally became a rugby influencer because this a couple of years back did definitely not look like the path that I was going to be going down. Yeah, which I'm sure we can get into a little bit more, but this is not where I thought I would end up being.
Just a humble guy. You're putting yourself down, mate. You've done some incredibly cool things. But yeah, rugby has been the path where you found yourself walking down. Talk me through where it first started for you. What was your first ever experience in rugby?
So first experience of rugby started actually going to a football session, went to one, realised I was awful, and then just a bunch of people in like my class in primary school were going to my local club, and it was 5 minutes around the corner from where I am, so it made sense to go and try it. Like under 7s tag rugby, I started super young, enjoyed it, all my mates were there, wasn't as bad at it as I was football, so I literally carried on through from tag all the way.
All the way, mate. Much the same like me. I was rubbish at football. I had 2 boats on my feet, so there weren't much use for kicking a football. Rugby balls somehow seemed easier to kick eventually, but yeah, I didn't really enjoy. I like the contact side of things. And how did you find that? Because a lot of players who start young hate contact once they transition from tag. Was it something you loved throwing yourself into, or were you hiding out on the wing?
Bit of both. I tried to force myself into it because I knew that I didn't really like it, but I knew that it's like if you hide, you're not going to get good at it. So even from young, I was aware that I wasn't one of the best tacklers on the team or most confident. But if I came off after a game missing a couple tackles or not making any, I'd be annoyed. So I'd force myself into the mix to like make some hits or try to.
Put your head in the spokes, mate. You got to sometimes just stick your body where the sun don't shine, or into some pretty dark places at least. And yeah, it's got to be done. That's the way you sort of grow up and toughen up, and it's led you all the way through to here. Shout out those clubs though, mate. What was your first club you were at? Because I know you are a loyal patron. You've switched over this season, but you were playing down towards Devon or Cornwall?
Yeah, play in, well, even now I still play in South Devon. First club is one of my only 2 clubs. I've only played for 2 actual club teams. That's Brixham RFC, and then joined Newton Abbott in pre-season of this season. So I'm about halfway through a year with them. But other than that, the entire rest of my time has been with Brixham.
What a club as well, might I add. I've shot some content down that way. Obviously, Lovell Rugby was once based down there. So we did shoot some videos, and you're following in the footsteps of other rugby influencer greats. If you didn't already, I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The Jared Harris, the rugby guy was a Brixham legend. Did he play at Newton Abbot as well?
He did, yeah, he went over.
Oh you are following in the footsteps of greatness, mate. There's something written in the stars for you here. Have you spoken to Jared before? Have you had any
I,
conversation?
I've not, no. I do know that last year he came down and played a game for Newton Abbot 2s, so I'm hoping he does that again this year, and then I'll put myself unavailable for the first team on Spawn so that I can get a game playing with him. But no, I'm yet to see him around at Newton, so hopefully he shows up at some point.
Two Devonian greats. I mean, well, he's a bit more South African, I suppose, but he's lived down that way for a long time. I hear stories of him when I'm playing at Bournemouth. There's lads who've played against Jared back in the day, and they're like, he's an horrible player to play against because he's just so physical and just so South African, I guess. He's just
Yeah.
a power athlete. You can see it in the goosey that he's got something about him. He's got some explosiveness about it. But that's, speaking of explosiveness, where you then started to venture down towards the gym path, man. I know you've worked with like My Protein. We're discussing about how you've been working in gyms and stuff. How did
Yeah.
that come about from a rugby perspective?
It was quite young actually when I first started. My dad was quite heavy into training and stuff like that, and obviously, you know, when you're young, a lot of people, the dad is like the main pusher of
Yeah.
like helping you out in rugby because it's obviously physical. So I was lucky enough to have like a spare room in the house that he just started getting some random gym equipment in when I must have been like 11 when I first started doing it at all. So then it just naturally kind of came to me. I kind of stuck at it once I was old enough to know what I was doing by myself. It then became, you know, doing it all the time. Don't just need to wait for someone to help me. So even from as young as like 13, 14, even though I may not quite look like I've been training for that long, I definitely didn't know what I was doing for a while. I've been in the gym, and even for a little period where I quit rugby for a little bit, which I'm sure we will get to, gym was my main thing. Yeah, it's certainly like natural that is playing a big part in my life still, and like in content and stuff like that, because it's, for a period, it was the only thing that I was doing. There was no rugby at one point. It was just gym.
Just gym. And it's funny you mentioned that. I was having a chat with Luca from Curva Rugby last week, and he was talking about people who find that balance between rugby and gym and having the education around it. It sounds like you had a great role model in your dad in terms of pushing you down that pathway. Was there anyone else in your life, a role model or an idol that you looked up to, or a coach that supported you along the way?
Yeah, luckily enough, pretty much from when I joined Tag Rugby under sevens, we basically had the same coach all the way through, and he was quite good. He used to be a back, so beneficial for a back to get trained by a back. A lot of times at least at Brixham, there's only like one coach because obviously it's volunteers. So if you get stuck with a forward, they might not know as much about the back. So I was quite lucky there. So I literally had him, and then later on another player joined. Their dad assisted in the coaching. They were a forward. They literally coached me through from under sevens, under eights until a bit older than I left. And then when I joined back, they were then the senior coaches for the second team. So yeah, definitely those two would be like the main people that have helped teach me anything related to rugby.
Always got to have those idols in your life. I remember my PE teachers at school. Of course, my dad, first and foremost, was the one taking me down to rugby. My mum was also there supporting from the sidelines, but it was my PE teacher, Mr. Lucas, back at my old school. He was a great bloke. He used to play for London Irish. And it's just fortunate when you land on your feet and you find someone who's real passionate about the game that can steer you through the highs and the lows. And I want to get on to the highs, but you mentioned how you fell out of love with the game at points. Like you stopped playing. Talk me through that
Yeah.
time. What happened there?
I must have been about 14, 15, I think it was. It was in under 15, so I ended up missing out on Colts, which kind of regret, but don't at the same time, because obviously, you know, if I didn't quit, maybe I wouldn't enjoy rugby as much as I do now. I think it was just a mixture of a lot of things, really, because I'd been playing rugby for so young. Since I was so young, I wasn't sure if I was doing it because I enjoyed it or just because I'd been doing it all the time. It was like routine. Sunday I got a game, Wednesday I got training, repeat endlessly. I was never one of the best players. I wasn't rubbish. I was about bang average in my youth rugby team. And it was at like that age group is where the lads that are bigger, they've grown quicker, tend to get the ball, and they are the stars of the team. I was
Yeah.
definitely not that. So the amount of ball that I was getting, especially as a winger that hasn't learnt to come off his wing and find the ball himself, it wasn't as fun because I'd spend, well, what, like 70 minutes at that age group getting the ball like twice, and that's about it. So, yeah, wasn't a fan. So, left, realised I didn't really miss it when I was a couple weeks after quitting. So then I stayed not playing, really.
It's interesting that you say that because for someone who also loves rugby, I also had a bit of time away from it because you wonder whether you enjoy it because you're semi good at it or you're good at it because you enjoy it. That's that balance
Yeah.
between those two different things. And when I wasn't so good at it because I was playing at a higher level and I wasn't really enjoying it, I'm like, oh, what am I doing this for? Because it did lead, for me at least, to a lot of negative things in my life, which is a real interesting part of this conversation I've not really shared before. But I'd say that rugby has resulted in some of the best memories I've ever had, but also some of the worst experiences I've ever had because in my obsessive way, through a lot of different mental health struggles, I developed some compulsions around performing, and it made it really difficult to just live my life. I'd always be thinking about rugby. I'd struggle to fall asleep at night, worrying about playing well on the weekend and getting an academy contract. And that's something that I think you delve into really well. Trying to optimize your performance. You care about getting better. You have that purpose, that passion for improvement, but also you're very, as we alluded to at the very beginning, humbly aware that you're just playing for the love of the game. And I think that's something that I've really begun to appreciate in later life, now that I really am playing for the love of the game, because whether I play badly or well, I'm still going to make a game day vlog about it. If anything, the worse I play, the more hilarious it's going to be and the better the vlog will
Yeah.
do. But the pressure's off. Yes, I'm trying to improve myself, but I'm no longer losing sleep over it. I've re-fallen in love with it, which sounds like a very similar story to you.
Yeah, definitely. When I first joined back, it was a lot like, okay, I realized, as a young kid, everyone's go, oh, yeah, I want to be a pro rugby player. When I joined back at 18, after missing out 3 years, I kind of realized that that's not going to happen. So I was just there for the enjoyment of it. So there was never there wasn't any pressure. It's just, I'm here to have fun. If I don't enjoy it, I'll just leave again because I know that I'll be all right if I leave because I left and I was fine without rugby as well. So pressure was completely off. But then again, it's funny you mentioned like what you just said about your struggle when you go an upper level, because this season obviously I've gone up a level, and until
Yeah.
recently it was also actually quite a struggle. I started off quite good in pre-season. Obviously, you're going to take a while to adapt to a jump in level, but I felt like I was doing that slowly. Every game getting a little bit better, and then there was a couple performances in a row where I just made like silly mistakes, and then all of a sudden it was like I'm thinking about rugby all the time. I'm imagining scenarios in the next game to try and play it out and imagine what I'm going to do to have a better performance that week. And then again, if that isn't the big performance to turn things around, it's just like awful, which I've only spoken about a tiny bit in one like YouTube video. So I didn't even put it on TikTok because I didn't want it to be like seen by everyone. But luckily that's finally sorted. It's back to normal. I've had a couple of good games and I've again come to the realization I'm doing this for fun. And especially with the fact that we're like posting it on social media, bad clips are also good clips. So it's pressure's off again and feeling back to, how you should playing rugby at like a grassroots level. It's for fun. It's a hobby at the end of the day.
And it's funny that you mention it because in hindsight, I've realized and will 100% recommend to my kid one day to just go and enjoy it. I look at the lads I know who've made it all the way to the top of the game. I look at, for example, Max Ajomo. I played with him through county rugby growing up. And I'd see the bloke laughing on the pitch. Like I remember he took an intercept for Bath, ran it to the house, didn't have the toe to get there, so tipped it off to Joe Singer who scored it. And he was laughing. And I was like, my God, maybe that's the place to be mentally to get to the top. I was there stressing, losing sleep over playing rugby, and he was just playing a game. Just a game of rugby is all it was to them.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality that you have to have, that balance that might be more easy to find now that your livelihood isn't necessarily relying on playing well. Like this is a bit of a pre-announcement for a content series that I've got coming out around I'm going to put a bounty on my head in the league that I play in for someone to land the biggest shot they possibly can on me. And then there's a times two multiplier if you then also give me some intelligent and creative, awful chat. I don't mean like, oh, stick that on your TikTok. I mean like some actual good chat. So
Yeah.
that way I can own the hate. So not only do I want to play well, but if I play badly, it's still going to get clipped well and I own it. I don't get like clip farmed by other people for playing
Yeah.
badly. And it's no longer having to rely on playing well. And it's a different, quite literally like a pioneering way of going about this because yourself, myself, and Max Brown are going to be the three are the first three. Well, Max, most of all, of course, he's at the top of the tree right now to find an angle of playing professional rugby unprofessionally.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. You're very brave for that series idea, though. I don't know if I'd try that out myself yet. Yeah, I was at the start of the season, I remember like actually thinking it like I'm almost like making a living off of playing rubbish rugby. Like I'm getting, obviously it's not, you're not nearly making the same amount of money as pro rugby players, but you're getting paid to play low level rugby. It's a really weird like concept.
Yeah, but that's the world of social media that we live in, which is a lovely segue into the second section of the podcast of how you've got to be where you are right now, mate, because of course, as we've alluded to just a second ago, you're going to get a lot of stick for putting yourself out there on social media. How have
Yep.
you navigated that, mate? Because, of course, I mean, I read comment sections. I'm well involved in the rugby community, and I can imagine the kind of stick you get for running in so many tries at your level of rugby, which is why you've sought a new challenge. But how has that been for you from a negative side of things, dealing with those negative comments?
Yeah, I think it's like completely different last season when I was playing at tier 9, running in loads of tries to what it is this season. Because last season it was like, I remember one comment saying I'm playing Brazil servers, which I don't know if that will make sense, but in playing like Fortnite back in the day, you'd go onto Brazil servers to get an easy game. So people were saying that stuff about like the opponents I'm coming up against,
Yeah.
which is fine because if you're at least playing good against that kind of level, then it's not, you can't really get offended. Okay, yeah, the level that I was playing wasn't good, but I was doing good at that level at least. So that never really bothered me at all. Was getting a little bit of chat in person last season, which was new, hard to deal with, but I feel like it wasn't bothering me too much because it was quite rare. But then this season, it's a whole nother thing because the comments are then about not doing as good. There's a lot more in-person ones as well, which is an interesting one to deal with. So it's been harder, but yeah, I think weirdly the in-person ones that I find easier to deal with because it's just funny and it's cool to even be recognized anyway, whether it be good or bad. And most of the time they come up after and say that we're just having a laugh. We're trying to win the game, so we're going to put you off a little bit. But then, yeah, dealing with the comments online is something that I'm not as good with. So sometimes I'll just delete them because I can't be asked for that to be seen. But yeah, that's definitely something I've got to get better at for sure.
It's so interesting, the balance between those in-person comments and the online ones, because I'm much the same as you. Of course, you're only 21 years old. I'm a little bit older in that sense, but the chat you get in person typically is never very good. I wish it was more creative. Like having gone to university and been stood on the sidelines dishing out loads of stick to players playing in front of me, I love to get creative with it and really find some funny way of putting off the opposition. Like there's a hooker throwing a line out in and you tell him his belly's offside. Stuff like that. Good
Yeah.
quality chat. But if I get tipped on my head and someone tells me to level that up, I can appreciate it. But I'm like, come on, I've given that one away a few times now. There's a few bits of better chat that you can put out there. But even still, regardless of how rubbish the chat may be, you know who I am.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Like, I don't know your name, but you know who I am. So in a narcissistic way, there's no such thing as bad publicity in that sense. You know me. Like that's just almost flattery to me. Or maybe in a
Yeah.
critical sense. But like you say, at the end of the game, they come up to you and they're usually pretty nice. This is rugby at the end of the day. It's not some nonsense football rubbish. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting one comparing that to then the online hate when you're then sat on the other side of a computer screen and it's just different. I don't know what it is about it. The fact you can't see the person. I think that's the truth of it, really. Perhaps that's the core of it all is that at the end of the game in rugby, you shake hands with the person physically. Like they're right there in front of you. They're really going to chat rubbish even more so. You sort of I'll meet you outside in the car park, fella, kind of thing. But no one's going to do that, you know. No one's ever
Yeah.
going to do that. It's ridiculous. But online, everyone's a keyboard warrior. They're a samurai in that sense. They're not just looking you out for a scrap in the car park. They're there bringing their legions of armies in their own mind with them. But in reality, it's just someone sat behind a keyboard. But it seems difficult to deal with.
Yeah, I think it's both ways about the fact that you can't see them, because it's also the comments are s- more harsh than they would be in person as well. And for whatever reason, it's just harder to like laugh it off, because if you see the person, you know they're not really taking it serious. They'll, like you said, shake hands, laugh it off. Oh yeah, we're just doing it for a laugh. And then the ones online, they come at like random times, so you could be having a rubbish day, and then one comment's got 40 likes and it's taking the mick out of you, and it's just can't be asked to deal with this. But then I can't even really think of an example of one exact like quote of a comment that was particularly harsh, but it just seems to feel more harsh when it is an online one, which is weird because it probably should affect you more if it's said to your face. But I can't think of something particularly horrible that's been commented, but I know that the online ones do bother me more.
So interesting because, yeah, I can't remember anything myself. If it's really that significant, maybe you would. But I think the context is important
Yeah,
because to continue the gladiatorial theme of offering someone out in the car park, when the comment comes online, you're dealing with the Colosseum as well. You know, everyone else can see that that comment's there. So either you respond to it, you respond by not responding to it, potentially showing weakness in inverted commas, or you delete it and no one ever sees it. But then is that you then conceding mentally on your side? It's just the fact that everyone can see it. Whereas on a rugby pitch, usually it's a whisper in the ear more than anything else. No one really
yeah.
knows about it. So you can offer someone back a bit of chat. It's definitely a difficult thing to deal with. I want to know though, what's the worst piece of chat you got on the pitch? Has anyone ever said anything funny to you?
Honestly, I don't think it's progressed for me past put it on your TikTok. I don't think anything has got past that. I think there's been one comment saying like send that to Belgium because of my videos ages ago about saying how I'm technically illegible. That was the most creative one I've had because they've seen some stuff and not just know that I'm on TikTok, but I've not really had anything too good.
Yeah, it's a classic. Stick that on your TikTok. Something easy to go by. And that's what I mean, where I'm gonna own that, you know, put the ransom on my own head and say, yeah, you're not gonna win, mate, if you keep on giving me chat like that. You're only gonna win
Yeah.
the ransom. Like I'll get like a voucher for some online rugby retailer to give away if someone sticks a shot on and gives me good chat. But you mentioned Belgium. That's a lovely little segue. Talk to me how
Yes.
that came about.
So, I don't remember how I found out that the amount of like ancestry or blood that you need to qualify for a nation is just like a grandparent that's 100% from there or a parent that's 50%. That's like what you need. But I found that out somewhere, and then I knew that my granddad was born and bred Belgian, so I knew I was technically eligible for that. So then I did a lot of digging way before I even posted about it, just to see if it was like, theoretically possible.
Yeah.
And there was one guy that was born in England, played like tier 5 or so rugby, went over and then like got multiple appearances for Belgium. So obviously I was at Brixham. Their first team is tier 5. So the idea was if I get to a point, not necessarily now, ever, where I'm like consistently playing for them and playing good for them, so therefore I'd be a tier 5 player, that would technically mean I'm as good as this guy that went over and played for Belgium, so I could do that myself. So that was the whole idea
That's the
about it.
theory.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Blimey. Well, that's a way of going about it. There's some lads when I was a kid growing up who played like Scottish exiles or Welsh exiles because their great grandparents, uncles,
Yeah,
nan's dog was from a small town off the coast of Wales. Like There's some tenuous links, but that's interesting because these European sides are on the up, and if you could break into that, how's the process going? Of course, you're still leveling up the rugby skill set. How is it getting towards achieving that?
Yeah, so I've basically got all the contact details that I need. The Belgium Instagram admin follows me and said that he's happy to help whenever I need. So I've got at least at the time, the sevens head coach and the 15s head coach. That person got sacked, so I then had to get the new 15s coach email address. So I've got all the connections and everything that I need. Now the goal is literally just to do the part of getting better at rugby so then I could go over. So yeah, and then it's also thinking about what like the first step to that would be. I think that I'd want to go after the sevens because I mean Belgium nearly qualified for the World Cup, so I think their ability level has skyrocketed since the idea came about. So the sevens seems a little bit more doable nowadays, especially for myself. I really enjoy sevens and I think it's quite suited to me. Yeah, we're getting better at rugby. That was another part of why I jumped up a couple of leagues this season, and that is the current state of it. We're just going to continue to improve, and then when the time comes and I've got enough highlight reel clips to send over with like a video to the Belgian manager, then we'll do so and relight it and make like another series about actually pursuing it at some
We're in
point.
the thick of it right now. We're in the like the what's it like the arc of just getting good at rugby. And I think
Yeah,
sevens might be your area of expertise. Like that's what I can see suiting your skill set with your speed and your finishing ability. So maybe that is the route to go down. Just got to keep on grafting. At least the
yeah,
dream's there. At least you're chasing towards something.
yeah.
So what does the day-to-day process of that look like? Not only in terms of achieving this dream of playing for Belgium, but just making a living as a content creator in rugby. I know you've got a few sponsorships and collaborations going on. Talk me through what a day and a week in the life of Josef Weber looks like.
Yeah, so obviously as someone with like less than triple digits in like thousands of followers, so less than 100k on all platforms. We're not full time social media, but luckily I've managed to find myself a way to make enough money to pay the bills, but also take as little time as possible so I can dedicate time to my socials, my training, etc. So a typical day, all that I've got to get out the way to pay the bills is film one or two, edit one or two videos for a brand whose page that I run, or at least post videos on. That covers everything. And then in terms of what I do, you've got different days where you try and batch out some content, different days where you just try and like sit down and do a bunch of the editing. And training wise, I try and go for a field session doing like some sprints and skills just like once a week, because obviously then you've got your rugby sessions themselves Tuesday, Thursday. So rugby with club Tuesday, training myself Wednesday, rugby with club Thursday, rest, match day on the Saturday. I'm in the gym Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday doing weights. Friday, a little bit of like a power session to get ready for the game. We'll chuck in some cardio somewhere, some stretches, so I'm not like dying. And then yeah, the rest of my time is either filled doing some random hobbies just for the fun of it. Because again, lucky enough to have a job that doesn't take me much time at all. So we're getting into golf as well at the moment. That's something that I wanted to get better at for summer because I'm awful. And or just like going out with my friends, spending some time with the missus, or doing some more work. Because obviously, when you're like not a full time creator, you want to get to the point where you are. So it's a lot of hours
Yeah.
putting into editing, especially when you're on multiple platforms as well. I'm trying to focus a little bit more on YouTube this year. So yeah, all free time is either just random hobbies or extra work.
The classic content creator trifecta between TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and how they differ. People don't really realize that the
Yeah.
platforms themselves and how you create on them are so different. And I typically only target Instagram because of that. I like the community aspect of the app where there's like direct messaging is so much more a thing, community groups and chats, and the For You page is slightly different, whereas TikTok is at times a dark place to be for all the brain rot content there is on there. I feel like if I find someone I really think is cool on TikTok who provides good value, I then go over to Instagram to follow them. So I'm more regularly met with their content, because I'll typically scroll, like most people, the For You page on TikTok, whereas on Instagram, I'm scrolling my feed, the people that I follow. So it's a
Yeah.
balance between that. But of course, YouTube is the one that pays the most when you can get to that stage. What are your milestones now? What numbers are we set on?
YouTube, I'm just shy of 15K. That's the smallest one. That is very, very slowly growing. That's definitely the hardest one to progress on. I'm sure that we're
Yeah.
well aware of that. TikTok, at around 32, and then Instagram just shy of 35. So I'd say that I make my content with TikTok in mind because that's where I started, but Instagram, for whatever reason, does loads better. So I'm starting to more pay attention to what does good on Instagram than I am TikTok. But yeah, to start on TikTok, so that's just what's been like the main focus, really.
Interesting. I'd argue that those 15,000 on YouTube are worth more
Yeah,
than 50,000 on Instagram. Getting subscribers on YouTube is hard graft, especially in the society we live in today where people are so oriented towards super short form content. Attacking like their attention is the most important thing rather than really entertaining them with anything. It's just hacking them and just trying to keep them on your video for as long as possible. That's just the game. But seeing your content pushed through on Instagram is interesting. I think it rewards better shot content, more storylines. How do you come up with your video ideas? What's your process? Because you do some pretty cool, through the content lens of things from a professional point of view, some really intelligent video ideas. Talk me through your creative process to come into those videos.
yeah. So obviously, some people, some ideas just literally come to them, which of course is the same for me. But then sometimes nothing's coming, so you have to like have a way to think about it. I think the main way that I go about it is I try and look to see what's doing good in like a different niche and then try and rugbify it, if that makes any sense. So
Rugby fire. I love that.
especially like the fitness industry, I think the ideas are quite easy to transfer over. So like one that I did last week, one that I've done many times in fitness content is doing like a 1 rep max. So then I was up the field finding my kick 1 rep max to go as far back as I can and still make the kick. How far back can I go? So that's just like an easy way to compare. And especially for YouTube content as well, I think the fitness industry has a lot of like creative ideas that can be transferred over. So yeah, I think that's the main way that I come up with ideas when nothing comes to mind. But sometimes it is literally just like, oh yeah, that would be cool.
Just cool ideas. No, I'm with you on that. And I respect your consistency, mate. How frequently do you post? It seems like I see a video of yours almost every day.
Yeah, I try and go every day. Sometimes you can't put out like a high quality one every single day, but I'm in a routine where every match week, that's at least 2 videos because I'll film the day before and then the day of. So that's 2 days covered no matter what. When I go up the field, I try and get 2 videos out of that, whether that's showing the sprints itself or doing some skills afterwards and stuff like that. So that's then 2. So then you've only got to like actually come up with from fresh like 3 ideas. So yeah, I try and go every day.
Bloody hell. That is taking some dedication for sure. And they say that the best artists steal from one another. So when it comes to coming up with creative concepts, you're intelligent in your approach around that. But how do you stay locked in, mate? How do you not only deal with those negative comments that we've spoken about before, but just turn up and keep on posting? What do you like? Are you intrinsically rewarded by? Do you love the process? Is it something that you're gritting and grafting quite a lot? Talk me through how you stay so consistent.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think I'm a little bit not delusional, but the self belief that this is going to work out and it's going to continue to succeed or whatever. It's just not like I never have any doubts in like social media being a thing. So it's never hard to convince myself to carry on going. Obviously, sometimes it's hard to, on a single day basis, to get it done or whatever, but it's never a doubt in my mind that it's going to be worth doing long term. And then I do quite enjoy it as well. I've been doing it for a while. I was on social media long before I posted rugby content, even before I did fitness content before rugby. So it's just a built-in habit at the same time as well. So it's routine. I believe in it, and I quite enjoy the process of it. It could be a lot worse what I have to do on a day-to-day basis.
It sounds like it. And at the very least, you're developing a skill set. We mentioned just before we started recording, like talking to camera isn't the easiest thing to do in the world. Like, yes, there is rocket science and brain surgery, which may be a bit more difficult, but
Yeah, slightly.
it is a skill being able to actually engage with an audience online through the medium of social media. It's a skill set in itself, and it's becoming an awful lot more valuable now. And I was at university when I started, and I was like, I'm studying marketing here, but I don't want to just leave with my degree. I want to leave with degree and some experience of anything, an actual platform to leave with. So that's when I started my business and practiced a lot of the theory that I was learning during my studies. It sounds like you've learnt similarly from other industries as well, much the same as Max Brown. He didn't start in rugby. He started all over the shop doing lifestyle, golf, a lot of fitness stuff, some like TikTok trends sort of thing.
Yeah.
And eventually rugby was the thing that blew up, and that's what he stuck with because it makes sense and it's good for the game. But you got to learn from all these different avenues, and it's what's going to push you forwards and put you in a real good position to, at the very least, if nothing comes from it, go and get a job one day like you already done in social media.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing that's like not understood about how hard it is to talk on camera, you can sit down and read the script. I think an underrated difficulty is coming across as yourself on camera. It's very hard to be how you are in real life on camera. And I don't even think I'm too good at that at the moment, especially um in regards to like being funny. I don't think my videos are too funny, but in like my friend group, I feel like I'm quite funny, but it's very hard to, especially in a short form video, get that across because it's not like you're going to be up the field doing some sprints and you tell a joke. That's obviously not going to happen. So that's also why I'm trying to do a lot more YouTube this year, because long form just gives you more chance to capture funny moments, I guess. But that's definitely something that's not quite understood about one of the skills of talking on camera. It's not just actually sitting down and talking, making eye contact with the camera and saying the right things about stuttering. It's also the personality that comes across. It's very hard to be you.
Especially when you script a lot of your videos, because I'm not an actor. I'm a
Yeah,
social media person. Like, I'm not very good at reading with real emphasis and portraying this character with the right pauses in the right places. It's sometimes easier just to not script the video or just to hit some talking points and hope for the best. As much as
yeah,
that stresses me out to not cover every ounce of detail that I had planned, oftentimes it's pointless doing it that way because no one's going to listen to you anyway because you're speaking like a robot because you're reading a script. Sometimes you have
yeah,
to sacrifice 5% of detail just to get 100% of retention when you're making the video. And that's where the longer form content, you can practice that a bit more. It gives you an opportunity, but you've got to know your audience at the same time. One person that I think does this really well, that is always my prime example, is who we've already spoken about, Jared Harris, the rugby guy. He genuinely makes me laugh in a way that I
yeah,
don't think I'd be able to make other people laugh. That is his thing. I don't try and emulate it in any possible way. In my personal content, I'll try and give some rugby chat and get along with people who also love rugby and love nosing over rugby like I do. But otherwise, I don't even try because it's so difficult to do.
it is. It's very tough. Like, especially especially if you're trying to do it like you said with a script. If you're then trying to script something funny, that's like doubly bad, because most of the time being funny just happens in the moments. That would be awful. Yeah, I think most of the time when I'm recording it is just like bullet points to cover. um Especially for a TikTok, it's mainly just like the intro that I'll think about, and then the rest I'll just like communicate as and when what happens, really.
Good insight, mate. And speaking of insight, what advice have you got, not only on this theme of producing videos and coming up with ideas, but just generally for people who are trying to break into social media broadly or rugby social media specifically? What advice would you have for them as someone who, at the age of 21, has done a pretty good job so far?
Thank you. I'm trying to get one of my mates into it at the moment, not rugby specifically. A PT, they want to get more online clients, but they've been saying they're going to start posting for literally the last 6 months. So the main thing that I've told them this year to make it different, I think it applies to pretty much everyone, is to make it as easy as possible to start, to like take out any friction. You don't need a a mic to start. You don't even need to be comfortable talking to the camera. You can do a video where you're not talking, but you just need to get some videos posted. And then once that's out the way, the initial embarrassment of people that you know seeing it is also out the way, and you realize they don't really care. And then it's so much easier past that point. Like the first 10, 20 videos are way harder than the next like 100. And it's not even close. You just have to start.
It's interesting how people will come out with practical problems, like you mentioned, not having a mic or good lighting or the right background or knowing necessarily what exactly to talk about. But in reality, the truth behind that shallow practical excuse is a mental excuse. It's not
Yeah.
even an excuse, it's a fear of judgment, of criticism, of embarrassment for even thinking about putting yourself out there in this external way, especially with content that may not necessarily have educational value. I think that's almost an excuse that I hide behind because I'm not making this about me and my personality until recently, once I've grown my coaching following. I was actually just trying to help other people. So if you're going to give
Yeah.
me a hard time about it, like that's pretty poor from you because I'm just trying to help you out. So I can hide behind that wall of embarrassment. But for some people, like Max, like you still provide some good coaching value to be fair, but like Jared, for example, he's such a humble bloke that it comes across so well. But his content is him oriented. It's all about him. It's at the center of everything. And if he wasn't such a humble guy, you'd probably get quite a lot of stick for it, or at least he'd be very nervous at the start of it all to even try because of the stick. And I'm sure he did get a lot of stick when he first started.
Yeah.
But then you learn the game. And that's the most important answer out of all of this, I think, is what you're trying to say is just do it. Just do it, as Shia LaBeouf says. Just
Yeah.
crack on because that's going to be the biggest teacher is just reps and reps and reps. And you can buy a mic along the way. You can buy a like ring light, whatever you want to get, but just start because that's what's going to be the biggest teacher, not only practically, but mentally that it's going to be all right. And it can be quite fun.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, even partway into me posting, I fell into like the trap of trying to plan and research and whatever. Before I posted rugby or fitness or whatever, this was while I was off rugby, turned into a bit of a nerd. I was making like film content and about like Star Wars and Marvel and stuff like that, which not embarrassed about because I still watch them now. I'm getting the missus to watch through all of the Star Wars stuff.
Nice. Good on you.
Yeah, that's where I started. And then when I transitioned over to fitness and then that turned into rugby, I spent a good month just trying to like watch other people's stuff and analyze it or whatever, but none of that actually helped at all. Just making the first couple videos showed me what actually helped because the first couple videos, regardless of the planning, were still rubbish anyway.
That's a really interesting point. And my first response was to disagree with you that no, you have to watch content through the lens of creation. But you are right because you can't analyze the creative aspect of other people's content if you don't understand how to produce it yourself. So
Yeah,
you are right in that sense because a lot of people get caught in this consumption trap where they're just constantly watching loads of TikTok, watching loads of Instagram reels without actually analyzing it, critiquing it, and breaking it down to then use themselves because they're not content creators because that's just what they do as their new source of media. It used to be the TV, used to be the radio, used to be the newspaper. Now it's such like short form content and you get
yeah,
stuck in the brain rot cycle and you're just watching the whole time. Whereas if you can really start to understand how to make videos, you look at even films differently. I love my Marvel movies and Star Wars and everything else as well. Like I love Dune, for example, and I love watching it from a creative point of view. Like, okay, how have they shot this? Why is this person stood here? And you start to look at the world very differently. It's pretty
yeah.
noisy, this conversation around all the analytical stuff that goes into content. But you are right. Starting is the hardest thing, getting the ball rolling. But once it's started, it's hard to stop.
Yeah. I mean, you can do both. Like, by all means, analyzing when you're posting alongside it is going to help because you're going to know what you're looking for more. Like, it's not a bad thing to see what other people are doing, and especially like looking at the intros that people use and stuff like that because that's the most important part, or the way that they film stuff. By all means, do it, but it's not going to be of any help to you if you have 100 points before you've even made your first video. You need to post, find something wrong with it, see what other people are doing, change it in your next one, that kind of thing. You need to do both at the same time, I think.
I've always said to one of my friends who plays pro rugby that he is not held back by thought. He just does stuff. He just
Yeah.
does it. Like, I'm here, like, overanalyzing everything. He's not obstructed by thought, is what I used to say to him. Thought does not prevent him from taking action or doing what he needs to do. He just gets on with it and learns, and that's why he's got to the stage that he's at. And you see so many people online talking about creating rather than consuming. Like, in the evenings, before the dawn of the TV, people used to paint and play games for entertainment, to create things. Whereas now we just sit and consume all the time. That's one common theme I see a lot at the moment, but also around this action first, analyze after, rather than think and theorize preemptively. Just do, take action, and then reflect. That's the best way to move forwards. And speaking of moving forwards, segueing beautifully into the final stage of
Lovely.
this podcast. Oh, God, it's like I do this every week. Looking into the future of rugby through the lens of a content creator, be that through S&C content creation, rugby content creation, whatever it may be, social media as a broad term, where does rugby need to go, in your, of course, very humble opinion?
Yeah, I think an easy answer that a lot of people say for this is obviously the rugby itself on social media, like the accounts that are posting the highlights and stuff like that. But I actually think recently, over like the last half a year, the club rugbies, the fan pages that post the highlights and stuff like that are actually really good at highlighting the cool moments that happen. Like I'm always seeing the tries, the big tackles from the games that I've missed or whatever popping up on my feed. So that's that. I don't think that's an issue at all anymore. I'm just trying to look through what I thought about before this as to what my answer was, because that's the basic one. But I think that's actually made a load of progress in like the last year. Like for someone that doesn't follow rugby, the stuff's out there. So if they start to see a little bit pop up and they like it, they're going to get more come up because all of the stuff is shown. I think maybe it's rugby is promoted to already rugby fans, and it's more about getting new eyes on rugby, because obviously posting those highlights, they're only going to pop up if you follow rugby. So I think, maybe with other influencers or whatever that aren't already in rugby, if there's like a rugby brand that then does like a paid promotion with them or something like that, like especially streamers, if you were to pay like a big streamer to go to a big rugby game and they've got 50,000 people watching them, the streamer's getting like hyped up seeing a massive dump tackle happen, that's what's going to get new people watching rugby, and then they can start seeing those clips that the accounts are doing really good for at the moment, and then that's going to lead to them going to watching rugby off their own back.
What an educated answer. That's brilliant. That's a really good point, because those are the people that are going to save rugby. It's not the people who are
Yeah,
necessarily already in the game. Don't get me wrong, getting those people to turn up to games and to pay for subscriptions to streaming services is important. We've got to keep those people happy with what's going on. But if you want to grow the game, by definition, you're either going to have to get those people to pay more, which they're already reluctant to do, or to get more people to pay the same. Either way, the volume goes up.
yeah,
Rather than increasing the value, you're increasing the volume. And how do you go about doing that? Well, you've got to attract people who don't already watch rugby, which is pretty difficult
yeah,
because it's a complicated game. That's what Level Up Rugby tries to achieve, is to try and help people watch the game better so that they enjoy it more. The same with helping players and coaches play and coach the game better so they enjoy it more. So ultimately it grows. But getting people engaged first so they have the desire to get better at watching it so they enjoy it more. That's the hard part. And you're right, posting those sensationalized moments. Everyone knows how brutal a dump tackle is. You don't have to understand or even watch rugby to recognize that. You
yeah,
see it happen on anything and you're like, okay, that is brutal. That is physical. Wow, that's real tough stuff. Interestingly, on a significant tangent, Rugby with Amy Humphries, does a lot of stuff around not sensationalized, but sexualized content in rugby. You see all those
Yeah.
people like warming up and it's zooming in on these tight shorts that these lads are wearing and how World Rugby have their own specific account to promote that kind of stuff. And that's another way of getting people into the sport, arguably, potentially slightly more controversially than the more traditional route of really promoting the big hits and the cool moments that are universally recognized. But you're right. If you want to engage people who aren't already watching the game, you have to give them things they're going to want to watch that aren't just rugby Norse moments.
Yeah.
What a take. That's real good from you. I like that.
Cheers. I'm happy with that.
Brilliant. Well, that brings us delightfully to the end of what's been a brilliant episode, Joe. Thank you so much for coming on and chewing the fat with us. How can the listeners help you out? If anyone's reached this far into the podcast, we know they're a top Norse. So tell them
Yeah.
how they can help you out.
I guess the only really way to do this at the minute is just to follow me on my socials. So it is just at Josef Weber, spelt with an SEF, not EPH. It's the Belgian spelling. On YouTube and TikTok, and then Instagram, it's got 2 underscores underneath because I couldn't get it. The actual Josef Weber doesn't post on Instagram, so that's a bit of a ball ache. But yeah, it should come up if you search Josef Weber anyway. But that's all I've got to offer. Just drop me a follow. That would be greatly appreciated.
Easy as that. Go drop me a follow. That's JOSEF
Yes.
WEBBER. That's the way to do it. A unique spelling, mate. Definitely going to stand out. I can't believe there's another Josef Weber out there. I hate that guy. I hate anyone who has an Instagram handle that I have who doesn't post. It infuriates me when I start something out and I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, I can't call my business that because I can't get the Instagram handle.
Yeah.
Oh, a tough time for us content creators. But anyway, we
Hard
hope
life.
you guys are having a good week. Go well on the weekend in your game. And otherwise, I'll talk to you next time.